We'll make it work. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are watching this Facebook Live. This is the voice on the face of Dr. Tolu, CEO, founder of Living Spring Family Medical Center here in the good city of Mansfield, Texas, where we believe in helping our patients live long and well because we believe the quality of life is just as important as the quantity of life. I'm very excited today to have with us Dr. Elisa Chiang, and we'll be talking about or addressing the statement, Doc, my finances are affecting my health, and we're having talks with a money coach. Thank you, Dr. Chang, for being here. I'm excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me. And actually, my last name is pronounced
Chiang.
John. As if the CH or J, actually.
Oh, Jang. Jang?
Jong?
Jiang?
Like Jiang? I know, it's not easy.
Okay. Dr. Elisa Jiang.
Yes.
Jiang. You tell me. All right. Now that we have that settled, can you kindly introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do to our viewers?
Yeah, so I am an ophthalmologist, oculoplastic surgeon, as well as a life and money coach. I got involved in learning about personal finances pretty early on. I've always kind of loved money, even as a kid. I was someone who kind of hoarded my money. I just like to count my money. I had this really pretty important wallet. I would save up all my money and just have it there. And not that I never spent it. I wasn't really all about buying clothes. My sister actually worked more jobs because she was really into having designer clothes. She wanted to wear Abercrombie and Finch. And I managed money well from college, and then I started med school, and I did an MD-PhD program, which is on average 8 years. And I did in Cleveland, Ohio, which has a relatively low cost of living. So because it's 8 years, a lot of us do actually get a primary residence. We buy a house during that time because it is long enough. And even though we don't make a whole lot of money, we make $20,000 a year. Back then, mortgages were super easy to get. This was kind of the cause of the 2008 recession, was the fact that mortgages, someone's dog can get a mortgage back then.
Wow.
And so in reading about mortgages, and then I learned more about personal finances, and then I learned more about investing. And I actually during my graduate school years read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which enticed me to get into real estate. So then I started doing some real estate investing.
Okay.
In retrospect, grad school was the first time that I experienced burnout just from lack of autonomy. My PI, left later, which is kind of your boss when you're a grad student, he was very much a micromanager. He didn't like that I listened to music when I was working. And it was so I would listen to headphones. And he said, well, it's distracting. I'm like, well, no one else can hear it. He's like, well, it's distracting you. I'm like, it's not distracting me. I would know what's distracting me. So at that point was okay, I don't want to have to work for someone else. How do I make that happen? And of course I can be in private practice and be my own boss someday, but that was still a long way off. And so I really started thinking about financial independence really early.
Okay. Wow. That's impressive. And I look forward to you sharing more of your story. For those who are watching live, please hashtag live. Hi, Grace. And hi, Dr. Una. Thanks for joining. And those who are watching replay, hashtag replay. All right. So you touched on the second question already as to why you do what you do. So one of the things that sometimes we encounter in, patient care, at least when patients come to see me, I say, you got to eat healthy. Oh, they said it can hardly hear you. It's echoing. Oh, okay. All right, Ms. Chicha, we'll try and see if we can adjust that. Thank you, Tanisha Trillo, for joining. All right, so one of the things that people tend to say, because we talk about healthy eating, that's important to eat healthy. And one of the throwbacks I get is that eating healthy is expensive. All right. What would you say to that as someone who is also a physician and also a money coach? Eating healthy is expensive.
Well, it's true that buying fresh fruits and vegetables can be a little bit more expensive. Eating healthy is not actually expensive. Eating out is expensive. And especially, I do feel like going to restaurants nowadays that prices are higher. Now, granted, they had a hard time during the pandemic and they probably need to recover. But if you cook at home, that's the easiest way to eat healthy. And that's much cheaper than going out to eat. You know, I know so many people who buy lunch every day, and if you pack your lunch every day, that saves a lot of money. And in fact, having frozen, fruits and vegetables is actually about as healthy as eating fresh fruit and vegetables, because when the frozen fruits and vegetables, what happens is when you freeze it, you lose some nutritional value, but then it actually stabilizes. Where with fresh fruits and vegetables, it continues to decrease with time. And when you think about it, from the place that's grown, it's picked, goes in refrigerated trains and trucks throughout the country, it sits in the store, you finally get it, and now sits in the refrigerator. If you're eating a week after you got it, the nutritional value you're eating with the fresh fruits and vegetables might actually be less than when you frozen.
Okay. So it sounds like, one of the things that we're emphasizing here is that eating healthy is not expensive. It may be a little bit more of an effort, because it's best to make your own food, so you have control of the amount of stuff you put in it, the amount of oils or things that are not necessarily healthy that you put in it. And also, frozen vegetables are an option because they last longer and they're relatively stable in the freezer, relatively, right? So sorry, the reason why I'm re-emphasizing what you're saying is because people are saying that there's an echo when you speak. I want to make sure that people get the nuggets you're dropping here. All right, next hiccup. And I'm talking about hiccups because people tend to say, you know what, doc, I really want to eat healthy, but these things are a hiccup, these things are an issue. Budgeting. I actually had a patient come in, and essentially what we spent the time doing during the appointment is going over a budget, because money issues were a big. Can you hear me okay?
It just paused. For a little bit.
I'm not sure what's going on with the internet today. Okay. So hiccup number 2, budgeting is heavy math. I can't do it. What are your thoughts on that? Because the whole idea of budgeting sounds scary.
It's really not heavy math. It's really addition and subtraction for the most part. And that is elementary school grade math, right? It's not calculus. It's not geometry. It's not even pre-calc. It's really a lot of addition, subtraction. Maybe sometimes you have to do some multiplication, division. So it's really about your mindset. It's the fact that people don't want to budget. Budgets often feel restrictive. And sometimes I talk about more like making a spending plan. Right? Just like if you have an eating plan, you have a spending plan. If you think of a diet, you think more restrictive, just like a budget. So we have to deal with money. That's the way society works. And you also have to eat in order to have nutrition and fuel for yourself. But if you plan what you eat and you plan what you buy, it does take some effort. But that's how you're going to get to your goal. And when you think about dieting, a lot of times you're thinking about being restriction for a certain point just to get a certain goal. But then you can get to that certain goal, and then you're going to still gain the weight back once you go back to your normal habits. So like with a spending plan, just like an eating plan, you figure out what you're going to eat to maintain your weight. With the spending plan, you're going to figure out what you need to do to maintain your finances in a healthy state.
Okay. I agree with you on the budgeting part. The budgets sometimes can seem restrictive, but when you make a plan, it actually helps long term. When you make a plan, you get into less trouble. And it's also one of the things that help also with finances, and can also prevent hiccups or prevent issues, including health-related ones that are tied to your finances. So the budgeting may seem a little restricted, but essentially you're making a spending plan. I love that, a spending plan, where you're adding essentially, right, how much you're making per month and how much you're spending, and making sure there's some balance.
Yeah,
Right?
in the end, you want your spending to be less than your income. Otherwise, you're just going to keep constantly get behind.
Okay, that is key. So you want to find out how much you're spending and how much you're making, and making sure that what you are making is more than what you're spending. Very, very, very important. It takes time, but it can be done. You have an idea of how much you make a month, and then just write down the typical or average expenses or average costs for some of the things that you tend, or the things that you tend to buy every month, and get an idea. It will give you a better picture of what's coming in and what's going out. Okay.
Right, and what gets watched and what gets tracked gets monitored and gets changed. So if you really look at everything that you're spending, you'll be able to find things that maybe you don't actually need. And this means looking at your credit card and looking at things that are automatically getting charged every month. You may have some subscription you signed up for that you really don't use, and you're not going to catch if you're not looking at your statements.
So unnecessary subscriptions. And that goes to my next question, Doc. It says hiccup number 3, I need everything I buy.
So we don't need, no one needs everything they buy. Right? You need some food to survive. You need some shelter. You need, basic things like clothing. But you don't need designer clothing. You don't even need new clothing. Right? You could go to thrift stores, the Salvation Army, and get clothing very cheaply. So watch when you say need. The language is important. You want a lot of things. And you're making that mean you need a lot of things. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have things that you want, but you can't necessarily have everything you want. I mean, some people can, and then those people are a little bit more happy because maybe they just don't want as many things.
Wow. So the language is important. Do we really need everything that we say we do? And maybe restructuring that and focusing on what we actually need versus what we want will help with that balance too. All right, awesome. This is good. All right, Doc, next question. What are 3 tips you would say to saving and keeping money at any level? Because sometimes someone may be watching and saying, well, you're both doctors. Easy for you to say. But these are principles that apply at every stage. And I can relate to the, shopping at thrift stores and Salvation Army. I did that for a minute. And so what would you say at any stage, at any level? What are 3 tips to saving and keeping money?
So you could take one key from the government. They take your taxes straight from your paycheck so that there's no question that they're going to get paid. So you can do the same thing. Right? You could take money out of your paycheck before you ever spend it and put it somewhere else in order to save it. If you're working a W-2 job, you can actually have your direct deposit go into different accounts. So you can open up another account somewhere and just have some amount of money automatically come out of every paycheck and deposit into this different account. And out of sight, out of mind. And over time, it's going to build and you'll have some savings. So that's one great way. And actually, it's a great way to save for retirement. Because for your retirement accounts at work, often you do just have it directly taken out of your paycheck and put into the retirement account. If you do have any kind of employer match, you definitely want to put into your retirement accounts at least as much to get that full match. Because if they're matching, that's guaranteed return on your investment. And there's no better investment than that.
Okay. All right. So I want to highlight the 2 you've spoken, because again, we're still echoing when you speak, and I don't want people to miss this. So number 1, the government practices this. They take money, taxes out of our paycheck before it actually hits us. And so the same idea, have a percentage, maybe 10% or however much you want to save, taken automatically out of your account every day, um, and have that saved. Out of sight, as you mentioned, out of mind. All right. So that's very, very important because that's the way you save the government. I like the analogy. Number two, you talked about matching your 401k. And if and for those who are familiar with this, of course, that's where your employer would put money away for you. You should match that. So you should try to match what they're saying they're going to give you. You want to essentially, you want to take advantage of the 401k options that your employer offers, because that's essentially free money. Okay, if that's an option for you. All right, Doc. One more tip? You gave us two. One more tip.
So let's see. The first one was automatically
take money
save,
out.
Second, and then saving the retirement. Also, really spending toward your values and thinking about when you spend money that it actually brings you lasting joy. Versus when you spend money because you love the actual feeling of spending at that moment. But a week later, whatever you bought is just sitting in your closet. I mean, I've seen people, including my sister, who have clothing in their closets that still have the tag because they've never worn that item. If there is something that you bought and you realize you really didn't need it, you already have something just like it, you might want to actually consider returning it.
Okay. Spend money on things that provide lasting joy. They add more value over time, and return some of the things that you may not need.
And try to think about what you really want, not to impress others, but because that's something you actually value. Because there is a certain amount of keeping up with the Jones that I think keeps people spending more than they would otherwise. Or them thinking, I see so-and-so have that, I deserve that too. Well, it's not that you don't deserve it, but are you wanting it just because they have it?
Keeping up with the Joneses. I'm glad I asked you to give one more tip. You gave more than one. That's big. Sometimes the issue is trying to be like someone else or trying to copy someone else when it doesn't actually give you joy. And that can lead to stressful spending. Thank you, Dr. Chiang. This has been very, very, very helpful. I'm hoping that people who are watching were able to glean a lot from these, because you did drop a lot of gems, even through the echo. Sorry, we're going to work on that for next time. But people are asking and they're wondering, you know what, this has been very helpful. I'm sure she has a lot more to offer. What would you say? Where can people find you, Doc?
So I now have a podcast. The Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast. It is somewhat directed to physicians, but I think that there are pearls that anyone can get at it from listening to the podcast. You can also find me on my website. GrowYourWealthyMindset.com.
Awesome. So I have someone who's asking a question. Paying off debt. Do you recommend Snowball method or paying off high interest credit cards first? What would you say to that, Doc?
So yes, the Snowball method, you can actually do that by paying off your high interest credit cards first. So there are kind of two ways to use the Snowball method. You either do the highest, you do the smallest amount of debt just to get that done so that you can go to the next one, or you do the highest interest rate debt. Financially, the better way is to do the highest interest rate debt so that you can spend less on interest over time. The idea behind doing the smallest amount first is that you have less accounts open, and it's rewarding to see those accounts go to zero. But if you can also just think about the total amount of debt decreasing and looking at that as reward, that can be enticing enough for you. Then throwing it at the highest interest rate will actually get you there a little faster.
Okay. So it sounds almost like highest interest rate is a good way to go. And you want to attack the smallest account first because that's less accounts open, so less effect on your credit score.
Well,
Correct?
it's not so much that it's the effect of the credit score. It's just that if you go from 5 debt accounts to 4 to 3, some people feel like that's more rewarding. But if your lowest debt like amount is a lower interest rate, you're gonna end up paying more interest overall if you're paying off a lower interest rate debt before a higher interest rate debt.
True. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. And she says thank you for answering that question. So please, this has been very, very helpful. I hope people are encouraged and not discouraged to save more money, to spend money on things that they value truly, and to sit down and, as restrictive as it may sound, to actually work on a budget, because these things over time, when they're not handled, can actually affect one's quality of life. Thank you again, Dr. Chiang, for coming.
Dr. John.
Chiang. Okay. Chiang. Okay.
John.
And what I'm going to do is, Chiang. Okay. I'm working on it. I'll keep practicing. I'm going to put your information, including the link to the podcast, after we do this live. But thank you so much for coming. This has been very, very helpful. I've learned quite a few things myself. Okay, so thank you.
I'm sorry for the echo. I've been trying to fiddle with my settings. I don't know why it's echoing.
That's okay. I believe the viewers got what they needed. So thank you so much. And on that note, we are done. Thank you all for watching. Please share with those who can find this useful. If you or anyone you know is looking for an awesome, a thorough, and a passionate family physician here in the Mansfield, Texas area, I am she. Thank you for watching. Bye.